Hello, everyone. Welcome to another interview with the graduate of the Shetty Certification School. While you are tuning in, I would like to say that this is the day when we are sharing the stories of our graduates, bringing them to interact with you live, tell you their story, and obviously answer any questions that you may have. Today, I have a very special guest with us, and Kassandra Parker is one of our graduates. She is a life and success coach, and she's one of the early completers of the program, if I may say so. We thoroughly enjoyed your panel presentation, and it's such an honor to have you with us today, Kassandra. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Well, first of all, Kassandra, I would like to tell our audience about the unique way of coaching that you do that particularly have impressed us all and kept us talking about this all the time. And this is a way of you connecting with your clients in an unusual environment, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, with a couple of my clients, I went up to, we did a hike, a distanced hike. We went up to a mountain here, Mount Daniel, and did a long hike. It's about 1,500 feet above sea level, so it's not easy. It's considered quite challenging, and I see that kind of as a metaphor. So when you have a goal that you want to overcome, you can climb that mountain, and when it gets really hard, you just keep going and persevere through it. And then at the top is this absolutely amazing view overlooking the ocean. And that's where we did our sessions. So it takes about an hour to get up or a little bit less. And then we had our hour session and then come down.
That is fantastic. I'm fascinated by this idea, to be honest. That's why I started with that. Meanwhile, I'm seeing a lot of, our audience today congratulating you and happy, that you have made it and you are a Shetty certified coach. People are tuning in from various locations. Kassandra, can we start your story with you telling us why did you decide to become a coach in the first place?
Well, about 2.5 years ago, I really started a self-growth journey, and I dived into my growth and was working on that and made a lot of accomplishments. And then about a year and a half ago, I got myself a life coach. And in that, I really realized how he helped me to achieve my goals in such a straightforward way, a lot less bumps in the road. It really made a huge impact on my life for the positive. So, and then all of a sudden, I feel like when those sort of doors open, things kind of come to you. And I started to meet a lot of life coaches, or some of my friends became life coaches. And a few people told me I should become a life coach. And at that time, I kind of had this thought like, oh, I might not be very good at that. I'm not going to do that. And then, and then about 6 months ago, I started to think maybe I would be good at this and maybe I would really enjoy it. And then when COVID started, me and my kids got a diagnosis over the phone with COVID, and I was feeling quite sick. And my kids were fine. They were really good. They were just runny nose and a cough, but I was quite sick. And it brought me back to how I was feeling about 2.5 years ago before I started doing all of my self-growth. And I was feeling, even though I knew it was temporary, I was kind of feeling at that same sort of place. Physically, I didn't feel well. Emotionally, I didn't feel as well as usual. So I knew that I needed something to focus on for that like 9 days that I was really sick. I needed something to kind of get me over the hump. So I've been following Jay Shetty for a while, and he was offering 6-day free life coaching course. So I did that and I loved it and I just devoured it. And so after that, I decided I'm going to sign up, and I made the phone call, and I had talked to another life coaching place, and it felt much more cookie cutter. So I really liked how this was really individualized, and you're really focusing on the person, not a set of questions that works for everyone. And so I enrolled.
That's an amazing story, Kassandra. And first of all, I am sorry you had to go through this COVID nightmare. And
Thank you.
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating that at the time when supposedly you should have been at your lowest resourceful state, you found ability to pick yourself up and go into the highest resourceful state. And I also would like you to share how fast you have completed the program and your secret to your timetabling, because I think that's fascinating too.
Sure. So I guess I did complete it fast. So I wasn't really thinking that at the time. So I started in early April, and I started with doing like really doing the lessons and really enjoying the videos and taking notes. I filled like 6 books of notes. I did so many notes, and then podcasts and all that. And I guess I probably put in about 5 or 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a lot, but it didn't feel like it, because that's including audiobooks and podcasts. And I was really, really diving into my self-growth journey. So this was actually extremely helping me. So focusing on that, really, like, I could be listening to podcasts while working out and taking care of the kids. And I think that's a really lovely thing for them to see too, and discussions that would come about from that. And I actually ended up doing it twice, because I do think the first time you're so focused on the notes and absorbing everything, once you start actually doing the sessions with people, you go back and you get so much more that you can use practically. So I don't really know what my trick was. I guess the only thing I can think of is that it was really for me to start with, and I enjoyed it, and I was wanting to do it. So that time felt really beneficial, not just to achieve something, but to absorb it and make it part of my life.
Beautiful. I agree with some of the comments, that say so much courage, brilliant lady. And I totally agree that you are probably one of the most resilient, people that, from the recent stories that I've heard, especially knowing, what you have gone through, just prior to enrolling. And Kassandra, do you think this experience changed you as a person and as a coach?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if it changed me or if it kind of took away all of the extra stuff that was in my way. I remember doing a session actually with Raj, who's there, and another one with my life coach that I have here, and really realizing that, oh yeah, I have been blocking myself, my potential, so much bigger than I ever thought it was. And I think that that's what it's done, is it's sort of taken away this stuff and like brought about what I already had, but brought it out to the surface, if that kind of makes sense.
Absolutely makes perfect sense, and thank you for sharing that. And Kassandra, looking now at where you are today, and the way you work with your clients, could you tell us a little bit about your coaching approach? Which results, do your clients get? How do you get them there?
Well, I think a lot of people come typically with wanting to achieve a goal, maybe around career or around relationships. But as we dive a little bit deeper, often we find that it's something that around their perception or around limiting belief systems that have stopped them from achieving this particular goal, as well as other things in their life. So typically how we kind of start is it's just getting to know each other, really me listening. And I've learned along the way that I am quite an active listener, and I enjoy that. And I think people can feel it when you enjoy it. And kind of find out where they think their goal is. And sometimes that's the goal to work on. Sometimes that might just be the start to a much bigger goal. And what sort of blockages or limiting beliefs they've had, and start to work on those. The thing that I really love about life coaching, like there's counseling and therapy, and I think that those are fantastic and very useful. And those really fix a problem. Those are really like, what's wrong? How do we fix that? But with life coaching, it's just so empowering. So I really want my clients to leave knowing that they came up with that they have this potential in themselves and be able to tap into how to live to that fullest potential.
That's fantastic. And I want to dive deeper into this because I bet our audience also wants to know, given your experience, and to me, you are such an intuitive coach. Again, behind the scenes, I was telling you that I admire your ability to listen. And, I know that that ability has been worked on, but it's also a natural ability that you have. And in your process of working with different people, different clients, helping them to achieve particular goals and uncover their full potential. From this point where you are today, do you have any idea why, in general, we as human beings block our own potential?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's so many factors in that. I think that I'm also a teacher. So I think even in the classroom, in the education system, we really, and I love teaching and I plan to keep doing that also. But I think that in the education system, we are often encouraging kids to focus on their negatives. So if you're a really fantastic artist and you're great at math, but your reading skills and your writing are really low, the teachers tend to focus on that and try to bring that up to an average. So we go through thinking what's wrong with us. We grow up thinking, comparing ourselves to others. And I think to focus on someone's strengths and their successes, and rather than just their struggles, struggles should be noticed and they should be worked on, but to focus on the strengths and successes, then you can start to see people's unique abilities and while also boosting that confidence, and someone can feel a lot more empowered inside. So I think that's a big part of it. I also think, like, in general, we tend to compare ourselves to other people, and I don't, I don't really know why we do this. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I guess because I don't really do it that much myself, but I think in general, we do compare ourselves as if there's only a certain amount of success or encouragement that's allowed out there. And to give less means you might get more. But I think it's the total opposite. Like, the more kindness and compassion and acknowledgement of people's successes and beauty within, like in general, that we acknowledge, the more others want to give out the same way too.
I
I don't know
think
if that answers it.
it does, and those are beautiful conclusions that you were able to draw, even though it's a really short time since you started coaching, because you haven't been coaching before and now you're going into that with full force. I think those are very powerful realizations. I also can see the audience resonating with that as well, in the comments. Now, I would like to expand on the part when you said about the comparison with others, because
Mm-hmm.
first, I really like to hear your perspective. And second, I think you coming from the coaching approach that you have, which I think is very intuitive, it's very genuine. You are so deeply interested in people and you genuinely want to end their pain. I'm wondering if you see the link between us comparing ourselves to others and the way we grow up, because linking to what you said about the school, in a school, we have to compare ourselves to others because there is always that one person who knows the answers and you sometimes don't. And then also, I'm not saying it happens in all the families, but at least it happened in mine and in all my classmates. Our parents, I'm from Eastern Europe, always made us compare ourselves to others. My mom would always say, you are not looking as thin as that neighbor's daughter, and she's so good. She's going to the dance school. You'll never go there. You are, you're not that thin. And I think, this generates the later on projections on us comparing ourselves to others when we grow up. I'm curious if you see any link with that.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And then just from like the early childhood education and stuff that I've taken, I know how important it is to not compare your kids to each other, to encourage their individuality. So yeah, I think that there definitely is a link to that can potentially be quite harmful. And I think for me, like I grew up quite a bit spending a lot of time with my granny, and she was an artist. So I just kind of painted in her studio, and we went for long walks and things like that. There was no one that she would compare me to because I was the only grandchild for like 10 years. And so maybe I didn't experience that. Maybe that's why I feel that less than the majority seems to. But also in a classroom, I know like kids can gravitate towards assuming they're going to be compared quite easily. And that's something I'm very conscious to not do. And it's very hard to not do that in a classroom. Just when you have so many students that you're teaching at once, like if you have about 26 students and you're teaching them at once, it's quite hard to not be like, okay, this one's ready, let's get going, right? So to teach to the individual is quite challenging. So I can see how that is really encouraged, that comparison is encouraged in a classroom by a lot of teachers because it kind of gets people moving along where you want them to. It's a competition in a way.
That's interesting you said that, because I think in many areas of our lives as we grow up, especially when we are still when we're still kids and our psyche is just being formed, we are constantly in competition. In majority of the cases as we grow up, first we're in competition in the kindergarten, who will sing better or who will dance better, who has the best costume, right? And then you are in competition with your friends, like who has the best toy, right? And then you're
Mm-hmm.
in school, like who is going to do better, and then the university, like who will go to a better university. And so maybe we are trained by the time we are adults, to be in this constant competition with ourselves. And I feel that if we had more coaches like you who could end up the cycle for us, and help us go out of the comparison cycle, that would be absolutely fantastic. And speaking about the comparison cycle, when you work with your clients, again, from your experience and observation, what could help us stop comparing ourselves to others?
Well, I think that competition can be quite healthy, actually, and I think it can be a huge motivator. But I think that the key is that we are comparing ourselves to ourselves yesterday. So I think that that's the goal, is if competition is a driving force for you, and it is for so many people, that you're constantly trying to work towards your better self, with still having moments where you let yourself off the hook. We need down days too. But I don't think that comparing is necessarily bad, but comparing yourself to someone whose life you haven't lived, who you don't totally understand their thoughts and their history, what they've gone through, what they haven't gone through, it just doesn't make any sense. Like you're trying to do something without having all of the information. But to compare yourself to how you were yesterday and go, okay, well, yesterday I didn't know this about myself because I've journaled a day since then, and I've been able to do this reflection, and I'm starting to notice that this is really beneficial for me. Then you can constantly grow from that.
So it's like getting to know yourself is what
Mm-hmm.
gets you out. I love that. That's a beautiful takeaway. And I'm so happy you shared that, because I'm sure it will help a lot of people in our audience today, though. I'm seeing one of the questions that we are getting from the audience. It's one from your fellow educator, Yuvarajan. He's our frequent viewer, and he's asking, what is the method or approach that you use to shift negative mindsets on approaching hardship?
What's the method approach to shift negative mindsets on approaching hardships? Okay, so I think that there can be a lot of people out there where they're quite negative, and that can be a hard one to kind of see. I have the opportunity for them to say something positive, and usually our go-to question is, well, what did you get out of that? What did you learn from that? But I think we have to be careful with that because I don't think that we're necessarily valuing the place that they're in if we just go straight there. So I think the first step really is to let them vent, to value their feelings, to not to try to necessarily understand them, and not to say, oh, I understand where you are, because you might not understand where they are. And so just to hear them out is the first step. And then I think it's to take a step back and talk about something that they really enjoy. What would your ideal day be? What's something you're really proud of? What's something that you really value? And try to shift that to the positives. And then if you can find a connection of maybe something, some sort of learning or something that they value that has came out of the difficulty, then you're well on your way to kind of go with that.
That's powerful. Well, thank you so much. And another question is from your fellow student from the certification school, Kelly. Kelly is asking, what is the biggest thing you learned about yourself from doing the certification school?
Wow, that's a big one. I learned a ton. So I think the biggest takeaway I had was there was a moment where I felt like I had the imposter syndrome. There was a moment where I thought, I'm not going to make a good life coach. I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I doing this? And I really, like, even just in my words when I was talking to people, I would be like, oh, I'm doing the life coaching, and I was apprehensive about it. And then I realized that I was blocking myself. I was stopping myself from living to my potential, and and I've been doing it my entire life. And I realized, because I was like the first person in my family to go to university, and I've overcame a lot of barriers and struggles in my own life. So I had this limiting belief that I was only able to go so far or be so good or be so successful. So I've really broken that down. And I think it's something that I'm still working on, but the amount that I've progressed is huge. And so that is definitely my biggest takeaway.
I'm surprised because I would never, ever guess, Kassandra, that you had imposter syndrome. I mean, and you were at any point were able to think that you're not meant to do this, because I mean, I'm very surprised by this revelation for sharing that. And thank you always for being so vulnerable, open, and genuine. One thing I love about you is that you are just so straightforward. You are comfortable with answering any question at all the time, even during your exam presentation. And this is another beautiful answer. Now, Jean has a question which I think is the perfect question to ask you, Kassandra, because I am also wondering. Any tips on how to improve your listening skills so you can become a better active listener?
Yes. So I think the biggest one that I had to work on at the beginning was try not to be too in your head. So I'm quite an organized person. And at the very beginning, for the first couple of clients that I coached, fortunately, they were volunteer clients, I was thinking, what am I going to ask next? Where are they going with this? And I was pre-planning where I would be going. And that's not fair to them, because they're leading it. Your client is leading the pace, and they're also leading where you're going to be going. So you're really just on the journey with them, and you're side by side on the journey with them. So one, definitely have your questions organized, but be completely flexible to not use those questions and to let your client lead the pace. Also, don't feel like you have to get a lot in. So I know, like, right now I'm talking a lot, but probably when I'm coaching, most of the time I'm talking 5-10% of the time. It's really the client that's doing it. Try not to advise. It's really tempting, and that's a big one. And when you're listening, like, if you need to take notes, but ask them ahead of time. Just there's so many things to listening that let people know you're really listening that are visual. And I think looking at them and making sure you're really calm ahead of time. So if there's something that you have going on your mind, or maybe your kids are acting all crazy in the morning before you send them to the babysitter or wherever they go, take a moment to meditate or journal or whatever it is that calms you. And so you can be just 100% present with that person.
Well, that is really profound wisdom now from Coach Kassandra. Thank you so much for sharing that. You literally said it, you explained it in better terms than our coaching supervisors would explain. So, absolute bravo. And I'm having actually a testimonial for you from one of your coaching clients. Omar said, I love our coaching sessions. They were so powerful for me. I am so grateful for your coaching. So
Thank you, Omar. I'm grateful too.
you were able to make a difference right there. Another question, and this one is from Shireen. What advice would you give your younger self from your life experiences?
Wow, great question. I've actually thought about that quite a few times in my life, and at different stages, I would give different advice. I think, um, I think right now, what I would say to my younger self is believe in yourself. Yeah, don't listen to others. That might be coming from a place of comparison, like we were talking about, or judgmental, or overly concerned about you and want you to just take a really direct, safe route. Let others' words in when they benefit you and they add value. Otherwise, just really believe in yourself.
That's another powerful advice. And I also think somebody told me once, other people have no idea what you are capable of. So remember that when when they are telling you what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sweta is asking you, what was your biggest hurdle in the certification course?
Yeah, the same. It was that I was limiting myself, and I even had a couple days where I didn't do any work at all, which isn't typical for me, and I didn't want to for a couple of days, and I let myself. I just let myself not do it for a couple of days. The kids and I went and explored the beach, and I just completely did stuff that had no podcasts, no audiobooks, not any of the program lessons. And I think I went 3 days. And in that time, I journaled a lot, and then re-got my confidence back up. And I think that was definitely my biggest hurdle was, and I did 2 life coaching sessions, and that was really important. I think as a life coach, it's so important that a life coach has a life coach. For me, that was huge. And I think when we're life coaching, sometimes people think we have it all figured out. We never have it all figured out. If anyone claims to have it all figured out, they really don't have it all figured out. So having the session with my life coach, Patrick, and having the session with Raj, like that really helped me and kind of gave me that push and that reminder of how empowered I can be. And that's how I got past that hurdle.
Well, that is, again, another genuine and great answer. I am having a question which is also building on your experience. And just for a second, I think I've lost it in the chat because the chat becomes quite busy. Kirti is asking, what was your biggest learning from your coaching supervision feedback?
Oh, okay. So my supervisor, I feel so fortunate. I had Joan, and she is incredible. And I think the biggest learning from her was that I'm good. I'm good at coaching. And she gives so much amazing feedback and gives a lot of different areas where you can take things further and you can continue to grow. And I took all of that advice and I did all of those things that she recommended, look back at this. But she's also extremely supportive and detailed in the things that you're doing really well. And just letting myself open up and listen to that and hear that and absorb that from someone who clearly really knows what they're talking about So I think that that was my biggest learning, was just that I can do this. I'm going to do this, and I really enjoy doing this.
Yeah, Dr. John is fantastic and definitely one of a kind. I also think that it was a perfect tandem. I'm always wondering, how do we match and create those tandems made in heaven between a student and supervisor when the vibe is absolutely, fantastic in terms of going together. And kudos to her if Dr. Joan is watching us. Hello, Joan. And Louise is asking, could you give some advice how you studied daily? I knew this is going to be a hot topic.
Okay, so, well, I start my morning. I think it all starts with actually the night before. So, and I got this from one of Jay Shetty's podcasts, I believe, or maybe it was a Genius session. I can't remember. But the night before, I'm a pretty organized person. I really enjoy lists. So the night before, I do my list, and I have my kind of plan for the day. And then in the morning, I wake up before my kids do, and I meditate and I journal. And then we do breakfast and we play and get ready for the day. And then I fit in my workout. And then at that point, I would be listening to podcasts at the same time. And I just really think of my time. How is this time going to add value to my life? Is like watching a Netflix show going to add value to my life? Sometimes, yeah, absolutely. And other times, maybe 4 hours of it is not going to add value to my life. So then I would, podcasts would usually be during working out or making lunch or things like that. And then usually it would happen more in the afternoon. I would start to study. So if the kids are doing schoolwork, like when we were doing home learning, once I got them set up, then I would do some of the lessons, take notes, and at nighttime I would do a big chunk at nighttime of lessons and notes. So I'd probably like between 7 and 10 was always a pretty consistent time. And so in those 6 hours, that's not me just doing the certification school programs lessons. They were maybe 2.5, 3 hours of that, but it was also podcasts, audiobooks, books. I met a life coach here, and he gave me so many book recommendations. So I think I've read like 4 of his recommendations, and often they overlap. So a lot of the things that I can listen to that help me with life coaching also help me with parenting, or help me with connections in friendships, or they help me in teaching, or they help me just in my own self-growth. So spending 6 hours sounds like a lot, but it was my own growth, and I was able to, like at the stage I'm at, I'm wanting to grow and grow and grow, and I think I just had the energy for it. I just got more energy from it. So I really looked at it as something that was amazing for me, for my kids, for anybody that I'm in contact with. I didn't look at it as something I need to add to my life, because at this time I was still teaching as well as taking care of my kids. So a lot of people from the outside could look at that as a lot. And I guess in a way it is. Like when I started to log my hours and go, oh, I did 179 hours just in learning logs in that time. And I'm like, wow, that's quite a bit. It didn't feel like that. It really didn't feel like that, because I embraced it and I loved it and I looked forward to it. And the night before, I had written down ways that I was going to do it. So I wasn't like, oh, I have a little bit of time. What podcast should I listen to? I already kind of knew what I was going to do and how I was going to be able to fit it in.
That takes a lot of organizational effort. I'm sure this is a great example for your colleagues who are currently studying, on how you can literally, schedule your day in a way that you still have those slots, where you can fit in the self-study and the reflection and the lessons. Absolutely fantastic. Another question from Sally. When you start with your first client, how would you open the conversation?
Well, at first, I would just thank them. I would thank them for them being there and for their time. Usually I would start a session with seeing if there's anything that's on their mind that they kind of want to get off their mind, or get off their chest before we start going into it. I would also, the very first thing I'd ask them is if they know what life coaching is, and explain the differences between life coaching. A lot of people think of life coaching as counseling. So being able to really clearly explain that, I think, is important. And that's something I practiced, because at first I wasn't super clear how to explain that to someone else. And seeing if there's anything on their mind, just really working on that rapport, getting them to a place where that you can see visually that they're comfortable, and make sure that your questions when you come in are very worded in a way that are non-judgmental and unbiased. And the best way to do that is to just be non-judgmental and unbiased and very opening and welcoming, and leave your personal biases to the side. And then, yeah, and then just go from there. Like, you'll start to get so much maybe out of the thing that's on their mind. That might be something, somewhere you go, or it might just be something to get off of their chest before you move on to what their values are and what they really enjoy about their life and areas that they feel really successful. I really try to start on a positive and then start to see where the struggles are, areas that they want to improve, and how that will affect their life in a positive way. Something I struggled with at first was comparing how that will affect their life in a positive way to how it'll affect their life if they don't achieve that. Because I'm such a positive person, to at that point, like, that's quite into the session when you start to do that. When you compare those two, at that point, I didn't want to bring them to a negative place to see that visual comparison. But I see a lot of power in that, because if you compare, like, if you've gotten them to a place where they see how amazing their life will be when they achieve the goal that they want, and then you bring them back to comparing that to being a year in the future and not achieving that goal, that comparison can be super strong, and then you can bring them back to how they will achieve that goal. So I think as long as you bring them, like, as long as you're hugging positive and positive, you can have some power in that. But that depends on the client, and I think really reading that client. Some need that push and they need that motivation, and some you've gotten them to such a positive place you don't want to bring them back.
Well, Kassandra, I think after listening to this explanation, definitely I would sign up for a discovery session with the audience. Now, Yuvarajan is asking you again, being a teacher and now a coach, how do you distinguish between teaching and coaching?
Oh, okay. I don't struggle with that, actually. I see them quite different, yet very complementary of each other. So because I'll be coaching adults and I teach like around 11, 12-year-olds, there's that separation. Coaching, I think, is something I've actually been doing in a classroom for a really long time. I tend to teach more by motivating than comparing, and I tend to teach to the individual rather than the group. So I think that that's something I've already kind of been doing. Teaching, I don't really see coming at all into coaching, except that over the years of teaching, I've really learned how to listen to people and how to motivate people. So I see some of my tools being really helpful to move over, but I don't see the approach of teaching moving into coaching. I do see coaching moving into teaching and being beneficial. So I see now how empowering, motivating the individual students can really be, because I can see that outcome. I think coaching is going to be, like, teaching and coaching are going to be so rewarding for me, because teaching, I have 26 kids for a year. Coaching, I'll have one person, and I can really see that improvement. And I think for myself, on a selfish level, that's going to be so incredibly rewarding. Teaching's rewarding, but you don't necessarily see how it affects people individually quite as magnified as coaching.
Totally. I also think that the future is about implementing coaching in the workplace, in education, and in every area of our life, when we will have enough people experiencing the impact and the growth just like you, who've been inspired by being through a coaching experience to become a life coach yourself. I am sure we will continue the ripple effect together with coaches like you, Kassandra. Another question is from Kelly, and Kelly is asking, how did you manage your energy between working, family life, homeschooling, self-care, and the course?
I I didn't see them as separate, so everything kind of felt together. For me, I need to work out in a day. If I don't, I feel I don't have the same energy. So I made sure that I got that done early in the morning. I also I start my morning, like I said, before my kids wake up. And if they wake up, they come and join me and they'll sit beside me while I meditate. But I need to start the day with going inwards. If I look at my phone, if I'm getting up and doing things for other people right away, I'm starting it outwards and I don't feel connected. So I need to connect. I need to connect inwards, and I need to do some sort of physical exercise, and I need to make sure those are done right away. After I do that, I usually end up having some sort of I just have energy, and I try to combine a lot of them. So I really love nature and I love connecting with outdoors. So the kids and I, when we play, we'll go outside and we'll play. And then everyone benefits from that. Also getting exercise at the same time. So I'm like ticking off 3 of my boxes at the same time. And I think the starting meditating has been huge for me because I'm able to really connect in a moment. So right there, how I said I'm ticking off 3 boxes, I would have actually thought about that in the moment a long time ago, but now I don't. Now I'm just being in the moment. And which might sound small, but for me, that's big because I am a pretty organized person who tends to do a lot. Being in a moment is huge. So I guess that's kind of how. And I didn't have to complete it as fast as I did. I had it all kind of written out ahead of time of when I would complete it, and I ended up doing it faster than that. So I think to give yourself that grace, like those 3 days that I had to take off, I think that you just let yourself and you do that. But if you are taking off maybe more than 3 days, or you're finding that you're doing only half an hour a day and that's not where you want to be, then you need to look inwards and sort of start to see, why are you limiting yourself? And try to own that and reflect on that. And I think a lot of that comes through journaling, meditation, walks in nature, whatever your outlet is, but you have to find a way to look inwards and reflect on that. Getting a life coach, that's a huge one. Yeah.
Thank you, Kassandra. That's a great system. And I think you inspired many of us to start our day with looking inward. I think that is very and very powerful. Now, how about telling our listeners where can they contact you? How can they work with you if they would like to try your coaching services? And also tell us a little bit about who do you work with so they can have a clear idea if they should apply to working with you.
Okay, so I'm pretty general. I do work with anyone as long as we're a good fit. So how we can discover if we're a good fit is through a discovery session. So I offer a 60 to 90-minute discovery session if you're thinking about getting a life coach. Ideally, I would like to take on a maximum of 4 clients. So it's not that many. And I'm looking at 6-month or 1-year programs. I'd like to be able to work with that person and for them to achieve their big goal and probably more. And the goal you come in with, just be open to know that it might actually be something bigger that you'll want to accomplish, and how that can filter into the rest of your life. So you can reach me through coachingwithcass.com or info@coachingwithcass, or I have a Coaching with Cass Facebook page. I started podcasting, so I've only done 2 so far, and we're doing that on Thursday nights. And I'm going to put the link onto my website. And as far as a niche goes, so something that I've been really focused on myself and I really realized changed my life about 2.5 years ago or a little bit more. I My life wasn't exactly how I wanted it to be. There was a lot of things that were going on where I felt like I didn't have any control. So I started to overly control things. And I started to become over organized or micromanage. It affected my health quite a bit. And I was very much in my masculine. So each of us, man, woman, or whatever gender you identify with, have this healthy balance of masculine and feminine energy. And at that time, I was more in my masculine than in my feminine. And I've really realized like how to be organized and then let things go and going with the flow, being more vulnerable, more open. Those are very feminine characteristics. So I'm much more in my feminine now. It's changed the way that I'm looking at things. It's changed my perspective. It's changed my health. A lot of men are in their feminine right now, especially with how we're seeing masculinity sometimes as a negative dominant trait. But there's a healthy masculine, and then there's this unhealthy or the shadow masculine. So I've been doing a lot of extra coursework on that and really thinking about that and diving into that. And I love the idea of helping people get into their personal healthy balance of masculine and feminine energy.
That is very profound. I've just learned something myself because I think that is a really interesting way to look at the root causes of the discomfort and loss of control that we all sometimes experience when we think, oh my God, how did I get here? My life is just not looking the same to me as it was 1 year ago. And I really like this approach, at looking at ways of balancing the energy. Kassandra, expanding a little bit on that, what are the signs, let's say, that your energy is disbalanced?
I would say the typical signs for a woman might be that she is finding that she's really trying to control things in her life. Maybe in her relationship, she is the person who maybe she feels that the partner isn't stepping up, so she micromanages the little things, the things that really aren't very important, rather than stepping back and letting him take the driver's seat. And the man, and I'm not saying that women should let the man take the driver's seat all the time, but once in a while they need to. And for men, for them to be in their feminine, it can often be very passive. They think that the women want to make the decisions, and so they are scared that they'll fail. They're scared that they'll do something wrong. Men are very scared of failure, and unfortunately failure is such an important part of life. It's how we learn. I guess fortunately, not unfortunately, failure is part of life and we learn from that. And I think that there's a lot of women out there that want men to make more decisions, and a lot of men out there that want to make more decisions and they don't know how to. And women don't know how to let them. And it's not even about the relationships, but it's about how that affects you individually. So for us to be in that imbalance of power and energy, it can really, so if we're not in our feminine power, it can really affect us physically, affects our cortisol levels. Depending on your metabolism, it can be that you're gaining weight or losing weight, your energy is depleted. It's actually quite profound, the effects that it can have on us.
I am really interested in this, and I see I also got our audience interested. You got our audience interested. Louise says that's so interesting. Kelly says love learning about masculine and feminine energy too. Joanne says Ida and Pingala energy, sun and moon. Love that you are getting this out there. And Julie says, what about controlling men?
So that's men in their unhealthy masculine, right? So that's men in their shadow masculine. So I can't say how that man became controlling, but he is trying to express his masculine and doesn't know how to in a healthy way.
That is super interesting. I bet that we have people who want to learn more. Julie is asking, what about women that don't have any power in their relationship, men that are controlling?
Yeah, so that is a man in his unhealthy masculine. And well, where would the woman be in there not having any power? She's not in her feminine. She's not feeling like she can be in her feminine. We always do have a choice. I mean, in that case, I don't know how controlling the man is and if there's anything that could be potentially harmful. So I wouldn't be able to speak to that to individual situations. But I think sometimes when we're in a relationship and we feel loss of control, we don't realize we have a choice. But we always have some sort of choice, right? So we can be seeking help, and that help might be that it's a life coach. And if the situation is not something that's violent or harmful to anyone involved, or it could be that they're seeking outside help because it is potentially harmful.
Wow, I am speechless because I didn't know we're gonna go that deep, Kassandra. And I just keep learning more and more about you and your approach. Alisa says, I was not aware of those energies. And by the way, Alisa is one of our team members, to get her out of her busy schedule of onboarding, to listen to that long. That means, we definitely got her there. Shiana says, love, love, love this. Alina says, what a great enlightened spiritual approach to coaching. Thank you for the inspiration. And then your friend Ricky, men controlling never knew themselves, and they are only trying to find themselves through the world's expectation of a man.
Yes, I think that that's so profound because we finally are raising our boys that emotions are good, emotions are healthy. But imagine a man growing up not being able to express his emotions, but yet, and also having more testosterone than a woman, being expected to sit in a classroom, not being as physical. And then whenever they do express those emotions, people see that as a negative.
Yeah.
So there's just nowhere to channel anything.
Yeah. I think it makes so much sense. And I'm also happy that we are speaking about this. And as you said, that in general, as a society, we are speaking about emotions. I am feeling that, this approach that you are having to coaching is, first of all, very unique. And second, paired with your unusual way of, taking your clients on top of the mountain and going with them on the hike. I am just like looking forward to seeing where you're going to be, with the impact and all the lives changed in even a year from now, Kassandra. And I am so sure you're going to do absolutely amazing. There are so many people who need you as a coach, and I'm sure a lot of them are going to hear this interview and they will, kind of make some decisions maybe or some choices about the way they see life or the way they are currently leading life, and something is going to inspire them, just like some of our listeners. Nicola says, so inspired right now. Alina, we are relating to unlearn everything and reinvent our connections. Joanne says, raising boys into men who are emotionally available.
Yes.
Michelle, awesome content. So happy for you. And Kassandra, it's been an hour, but it's flown like 1 minute. And
Yeah.
I want to thank you for your wisdom, first of all, and for being so generous with, opening up and sharing with us your whole life, your experience through the school. And of course, this absolutely amazing wisdom about your coaching approach. I love this interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Medina. It's been amazing for me also.
Thank you. If you want to get in touch with Kassandra, do not forget to either go to our website, www.jshettycoaching.com, or visit Kassandra's website. We posted the link in the comments. If you are looking for a spiritual coach who is going to help you balance your energy and who is going to help you set really big goals, however, will help you make those goals attainable and will help you achieve them, I recommend you to get in touch with Kassandra because I think she has won our hearts today. Thank you once again, Kassandra, and thank you to everyone who has attended. You have a wonderful rest of the day. Watch out for the interview next week with another amazing graduate of the J. Shetty Certification School. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.